Ted, it is about 2:30 in the afternoon. You are scheduled to be executed tomorrow morning at 7 o'clock if you don't receive another stay. What is going through your mind? What thoughts have you had in these last few days?
Well, I won't kid you to say that it's something that I feel that I am in control of or something that I've come to terms with, because I haven't. It's a moment-by-moment thing. Sometimes I feel very tranquil, and other times I don't feel tranquil at all. What's going through my mind right now is to use the minutes and hours that I have left as fruitfully as possible and see what happens. It helps to live in the moment in the essence that we use it productively. So right now I'm feeling calm, and in large part because I'm here with you.
For the record, you are guilty of killing many women and girls. Is
yes.
that correct?
Yes, that's true.
Ted, how did it happen? Take me back. What are the antecedents of the behavior that we've seen? So much grief, so much sorrow, so much pain for so many people. Where did it start? How did this moment come about?
That's the question of the hour, and one that not only people much more intelligent than I have been working on for years, but one that I've been working on for years and trying to understand. Is there enough time to explain it all? I don't know. I think I understand it, though. Understand what happened to me, to the extent that I can see how certain feelings and ideas developed in me to the point where I began to act out on them. Certain very violent and very destructive feelings.
Right, let's go back then to those roots. First of all, you, as I understand it, were raised in what you consider to have been a healthy home.
Absolutely.
You were not physically abused. You were not sexually abused. You were not emotionally abused.
No way. And that's part of the tragedy of this whole situation, is because I grew up in a wonderful home with two dedicated and loving parents, one of 5 brothers and sisters. A home where we as children were the focus of my parents' lives, where we regularly attended church with 2 Christian parents who did not drink, they did not smoke, there was no gambling, there was no physical abuse or fighting in the home. I'm not saying this was Leave It to Beaver.
It wasn't a perfect home.
Well, no, I don't know that such a home exists, but it was a fine, solid Christian home, and nobody, I hope no one will try to take the easy way out and to try to blame or otherwise accuse my family of contributing to this, because I know, and I'm trying to tell you as honestly as I know how, what happened, and I think this is a message I want to get across. But as a young boy, and I mean a boy of 12 or 13, certainly, that I encountered outside the home again, in the local grocery store, the local drugstore, the softcore pornography, what people call softcore. But as I think I explained to you last night, Dr. Dobson, in an anecdote, that as young boys do, we explored the back roads and sideways and byways of our neighborhood, and oftentimes people would dump the garbage and whatever they were cleaning out of their house, and from time to time we'd come across pornographic books of a harder nature than more graphic, you might say, more explicit nature than we would encounter, let's say, in your local grocery store. And this also included such things as, let's say, detective magazines and
those that involve violence.
Yes, and this is something I think I want to emphasize, is the most damaging kinds of pornography. Again, I'm talking from personal experience, hard, real personal experience. The most damaging kinds of pornography are those that involve violence and sexual violence, because the wedding of those two forces, as I know only too well, brings about behavior that is just too terrible to describe.
Now walk me through that. What was going on in your mind at that time.
Okay, before we go any further, I think it's important to me, and the people believe what I'm saying, to tell you that I'm not blaming pornography and not saying that it caused me to go out and do certain things. And I take full responsibility for whatever I've done and all the things that I've done. That's not the question here. The question and the issue is how this kind of literature contributed and helped mold and shape the kinds of violent behavior.
It fueled your fantasies, didn't it?
Well, in the beginning it fuels this kind of thought process. Then at a certain time it's instrumental in what I would say crystallizing it, making into something which is almost like a separate entity inside. And at that point you're at the verge, or I was at the verge of acting out on these kinds of thoughts.
Now I really want to understand that. You had gone about as far as you could go in your own fantasy life with printed material. And you made, or printed and video or film, or
film,
photos,
magazines, what have you. Yeah.
And then there was the urge to take that little step, or big step, over to a physical event.
And it happens, it happened in stages, gradually. It doesn't necessarily, not to me at least, happen overnight. My experience with, I'd say, pornography generally, but with pornography that deals on a violent level with sexuality, is that once you become addicted to it, and I look at this as a kind of addiction, like other kinds of addiction, I would keep looking for more potent, more explicit, more graphic kinds of material. Like an addiction, you keep craving something which is harder, something which gives you a greater sense of excitement, until you reach the point where the pornography only goes so far. You reach that jumping off point where you begin to wonder if maybe actually doing it will give you that which is beyond just reading about it or looking at it.
How long did you stay at that point before you actually assaulted someone?
Well, yeah, you see, that is a very delicate point in my own development, and we're talking about having reached the point, or a gray area that surrounded that point over a course of
You don't remember
years.
How long that
was?
Well,
I would say a couple of years. And what I was dealing with there were very strong inhibitions against criminal behavior, violent behavior that had been conditioned into me, bred into me in my environment, in my neighborhood, in my church, in my school. Things which said, no, this is wrong. I mean, even to think of it is wrong, but certainly to do it is wrong. And I'm on that edge, and you might say the last vestiges of restraint, the barriers to actually doing something were being tested constantly and assailed through the kind of fantasy life that was fueled largely by pornography.
Do you remember what pushed you over that edge? Do you remember the decision to go for it? Do you remember where you decided to throw caution to the wind?
Again, when you say pushed, I know what you're saying. I don't want to infer again.
I understand that.
That I was some helpless kind of a victim, and yet we're talking about an influence that is the influence of violent types of media and violent pornography, which was an indispensable link in the chain of behavior, the chain of events that led to the behaviors, to the assaults, to the murders, and what have you. It's a very difficult thing to describe. The sensation of reaching that point where I knew that it was like something had, say, snapped, that I knew that I couldn't control it anymore, that these barriers that I had learned as a child that had been instilled in me were not enough to hold me back with respect to seeking out and harming somebody.
Would it be accurate to call that a frenzy, a sexual frenzy?
Well, yes, that's one way to describe it. A compulsion, a building up of this destructive energy. Another factor here that I haven't mentioned is the use of alcohol. But I think that what alcohol did, in conjunction with, let's say, my exposure to pornography, was alcohol reduced my inhibitions. At the same time, the fantasy lives that were fueled by pornography eroded them further.
In the early days, you were nearly always about half drunk when you did these things. Is that right?
Yes. Yes.
Was that always true?
I would say that was generally the case, almost without exception.
All right, if I can understand it now, there's this battle going on within. There are the conventions that you've been taught. There's the right and wrong that you learned as a child. And then there is this unbridled passion fueled by your plunge into hardcore violent pornography. And those things are at war with each other.
Yes.
And then with the alcohol diminishing the inhibitions, you let go.
Well, yes, and you can summarize it that way, and that's accurate.
قائمه تبدأ باختطاف فتاة ليغتصبها ويعذبها ومن ثم يقتلها ويقوم بإخفاء جثتها. تم السماح بنشرها عام 2018 وفيها تظهر سيارة تيد باندي الفوكس فاجن بنية اللون مركونة بالقرب من بحيرة مامش في يوتا، حيث قام تيد يومها باختطاف كل من جانيس أوت ومن ثم اختطاف دينيس نوسلاند وعمرها 19 سنة. في هذه الصورة يظهر تيد داخل سيارته وهو يراقب شخص ما، ربما تكون هذه الصورة ضحاياه. في الرابع لدينا صور من اللحظات الأولى لإعادة القبض على تيد باندي بعد أن هرب من سجن كالورادو، حيث استطاع قتل واغتصاب فتاتين. ونشاهد في هذه الصور قدرة تيد باندي على تغيير شكله خلال فترة وجيزة بعد أن هرب من السجن. كما تلاحظون في هذه الصور التي تقارن بين شكله في السجن وشكله بعد أن تم القبض عليه بعد بحوزته 12 بطاقة بنكية مسروقة، ورفض إعطاء اسمه الحقيقي للشرطة. ورغم شك الشرطة بشخصيته الحقيقية، كان عليهم التحقق من شخصيته من خلال بصمات الأصابع. تكون هذه الصورة هي المرة الوحيدة التي نستطيع فيها رؤية تيد باندي الحقيقي، والذي أخفاه خلف شخصياته العادية والطموحة. ففي لحظات أثناء محاكمته فقد تيد باندي أعصابه لنرى شخصيته الغاضبة، فربما هذا الوجه الذي ترونه على الشاشة الآن يكون هو نفس الوجه الغاضب الذي كان على ضحاياه رؤيته في لحظاتهم الأخيرة قبل أن يفارقنا الحياة. تيد باندي في المحكمة إعادة ضبط مشاعره بثوان معدودة ليعيد قناع الرجل الطبيعي إلى مكانه، ولكننا لا نستطيع سوى أن نتوقع أن هذا هو وجه ذلك القاتل السادي المخفي خلف هذا القناع.
sorry. It isn't good to think, but I'm sorry. Not for me. I mean, I'm sorry.
Well, what you saying there goes a long way still.
I understand that all this stuff. But not myself. It makes me realize what was going on. It doesn't make it any less. This was serious. But the senselessness of it